Hey guys, and welcome to the video. We're going to be discussing the comic book movie genre and the course corrects after a string of recent subpar movies. So let's power up and take a serious look at the state of Marvel and DC post-Avengers Endgame. But before we get started, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and stay up to date with all the movie news we have going on around here, guys. So guys, we're going to take a look at this Bounding into Comics article. Mark Miller claims the superhero movie genre ended after Avengers Endgame, posits Marvel and DC have been trying to course correct. So yeah, obviously, Avengers Endgame came out. It was like the culmination of the earlier phases of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It was absolutely huge. It had been building up to it with several films, and everybody nearly watched it. Broke the box office basically. And the quality of the movie, the Avengers movies, was second to none. Marvel put out hit after hit after hit, and the quality of the superhero genre was just firing on all cylinders. But ever since the climax of Avengers Endgame, we've had kind of a drop in quality of movies, and it's been hard to, sustain the genre to the same heights that it was during the earlier phases of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, Mark Miller, the creator of Kick-Ass, Kingsman, Wanted, Super Crooks, and Civil War, recently shared his beliefs that the superhero movie genre had ended with Avengers Endgame, but claims that Marvel and DC have been trying to course correct after a number of subpar entries. Yeah, so we know about DC as well, guys. Obviously, DC, the last sort of 6 or 7 films they've put out, they've not even managed to reach $400 million with one of their movies in the last sort of like 6 or 7 movies. They've had a real bad time at the box office trying to get the DCEU off the ground. Obviously, Zack Snyder came in to begin with. He did quite well at the start, $700-800 million, but over time, the DCEU just declined. Marvel's had a string of kind of up and downs as well. So it looks like the genre is on a bit of a rocky setting at the moment, but can they course correct? That is the big question. So Miller recently spoke with the New York Times about his upcoming live action adaptation, The Chosen One, on Netflix, which is based on the American Jesus comic book series. While discussing the series, he also touched on the history of the superhero movie genre, saying, quote, "These movies generally weren't very good prior to 1999. They were usually made by people who didn't understand or care about the material. With 2 exceptions, Richard Donner's with Superman and Tim Burton with Batman." Yeah, obviously, they're the 2 superhero movies that are just universally loved by pretty much everyone, the hardcore fans and casual. Obviously, the Superman and Batman. Yeah, the Richard Donner Superman, obviously, that's the classical image of Superman that you think of. In Tim Burton's Batman, obviously, we had Michael Keaton come back in The Flash. He's a fan favorite as well. So he continued to say, quote, "So it was amazing in 1999 when Marvel cracked the code and made these things great. It wasn't just the technology caught up to the material, it was that the people who made these movies treated them with real dignity. That's the huge difference there, guys, exactly. However, then he shared that the genre ended with Endgame. The genre had a great run and kind of ended in 2019 with Avengers Endgame. That felt like the last truly great superhero movie." That could be argued. I mean, there has been some good movies that have come out recently in the superhero genre. People could argue, some people like Blue Beetle, especially the last Guardians of the Galaxy movie. I would argue that was a good movie. But yeah, it's been a bit hit and miss, obviously, on both sides. Obviously, like, watching a movie is it's all subjective. People can love and hate different movies. There's no one standard, good or bad. But yeah, I would say that Marvel did peak with Avengers Endgame, and they've never been able to sustain that kind of quality or interest in Marvel since then, I would say. So as for why he believes it ended with Endgame, despite the plethora of Marvel studio productions, as well as DC coming out since then, he explained, quote, "Everything since then, I feel that the people involved haven't loved the material the way that Sam Raimi loved Spider-Man, or Christopher Nolan, who read 50 years worth of Batman comics before he started doing Batman." Yeah, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man. I mean, what can you say about that? Obviously, the first 2 movies, universally loved by most people. Some people say that Spider-Man 2 by Sam Raimi could be a top contender for one of the best comic book movies ever made. And then we've got the Dark Knight trilogy by Christopher Nolan. That was on a whole nother scale. Another movie, obviously the Dark Knight, the second movie in the trilogy. A lot of people argue that that is the best superhero movie ever made, and they wouldn't be wrong. Absolutely phenomenal movies. Sorry to go off on a tangent there, guys. You get me talking about these movies. Sometimes you have thoughts that come into your head and you just start talking about different things, so I do apologize. While he believes that the genre ended with Avengers Endgame, he does think that Marvel and DC are attempting to course correct. Well, obviously DC is attempting to course correct. The last 5 or 6 movies have failed to make 400 million, and they're doing a complete reboot with James Gunn's DCU. Obviously, they're doing a whole reboot. We don't know what characters are coming over from the DCEU at the moment. We obviously know that Superman's going to be a new actor, but we don't know what other characters are coming across. Gal Gadot might come across. We don't really know. Whether Sasha Calle's Supergirl's coming across, we don't know either. Only time will tell. So, quote, I think it will come back. These movies made too much money for them to fail. Yeah, you got to remember, Hollywood is all about the money. Like, they love putting out movies and they love creating content, obviously, but they're a business. At the forefront, they're there to make money. That's what it's all about. So, also, quote, what I know from talking to friends at DC and Marvel is there's a massive course correct being planned. They need to get back on track. Getting some people with an interesting voice again is critical, he said. Yeah, obviously Marvel's struggled a bit recently, especially on their Disney Plus platform with their Marvel series. And, you know, the last few Marvel films have been okay. Guardians 3 was pretty good. But yeah, they begin to struggle as well. He then asserted, quote, every director who did a superhero movie for the first 10 to 15 years had success on the entertainment scene before that. Finally, Miller concluded, quote, and unexpected choices were made, as opposed to just jobbing directors who treated it like any other gig. Miller is not alone Let me start that again. Miller is not alone in his assertion that the superhero movie genre is over. Prolific Batman and Punisher writer Chuck Dixon shared to Facebook back in June, the superhero cycle had a good run, but it's over. Yeah, this is a thing that keeps cropping up every now and again, guys. Whenever you talk about superheroes, inevitably it comes up that the superhero fatigue is setting in, that people are beginning to get a little bit fed up because the market is just oversaturated with superhero movies. Is it the fact that people are fed up with superheroes, or are people just fed up with a declining quality? Because if you put out a quality superhero movie, people will still watch it. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is a perfect example of that. That only came out recently, but it made 800 million at the box office. So there's still a lot of interest in superhero movies, but I think people are just fed up with the declining quality. I think that's what it is. So he elaborated on, while speaking to Bounding into Comics, quote, every movie cycle ends. Westerns give way to spies, who gave way to horror, and on and on. The superhero genre has had an extraordinary long run. Yeah, so it's like anything in life, guys. There's cycles to pretty much everything. There's like cycles in fashion. People start wearing certain clothes, that goes out of fashion. The next type of clothes come in. And it's the same with movie genres, I guess. You have westerns, and then they go out of style. You have the spy movies, and then they go out of style. Horror comes back and goes, So I get what he's saying, that cycles happen in life, and it just happens in every industry, not just Hollywood as well. So from there, he pointed to a number of different factors, quote, but a number of factors have contributed to the drop in interest for comic book-based content. Oversaturation, that's exactly what I've just been saying to you guys. Any market that oversaturates any product, people start to get fed up with it and look for alternatives. Inconsistent quality, yeah, Marvel used to hit a certain quality. Every single movie that came out from Marvel, you were excited to watch it no matter what character it was, because you knew the quality was going to be there. But now with recent phases of Marvel, you're not so sure what kind of quality you're going to get in their movies, and it's completely shifted for the audience. And Hollywood's restricted access to the Chinese market. Yeah, obviously, like everybody knows that China, they restrict a lot of things. They have a lot of problems, with different things within movies. So you have to change scenes, or you have to edit certain things out. And your movie can be banned in China for a majority of reasons, which can lead to a massive drop in the box office because the Chinese market is huge. So he also put to blame firmly on DC and Marvel and their parent companies. Quote, both Disney and Warner are to blame as well. Marvel fans had to put up with a steady assault of woke content. Yeah, that could be completely argued for, especially with Disney. You know exactly what I'm talking about, guys. Snow White, Disney remakes as well, and overbearing amount of comedy included in material, and a general decline in quality of effects. And most damaging, a deliberate departure from the source material at every opportunity. Yeah, when you take the source material of a comic book and you just completely eviscerate it, like they did with Secret Invasion. If you actually go and read the comic to Secret Invasion, they changed so much of the content, and it's just basically become something else. It's not the same anymore. And it's the quality of effects as well, like it says here, guys. If you watch the latest Flash movie, regardless of whether you enjoyed the Flash or not, you cannot deny that the CGI in the latest Flash movie was horrendous. That scene where he's catching the babies falling out of the building, it just looks awful and it looks so bad. And there's just no excuse for why the CGI should be that bad, you know? So, quote, DC screwed the pooch by constantly rebooting their franchises with new auteurs and casts. In addition, they diluted their brand with multiple different and conflicting continuities spread across TV and features, he asserted. I could argue about that because having a main continuity of like a DCEU and then having Elseworld stories, I think that can be a thing that can work. And going forward, obviously we're going to have the Batman, and then we're going to have James Gunn's DCU on the side as well. So there's going to be like two Batmans running around, and I argue that it can be done if it's done well. If the stories are good and the scripts are good, then people will come and watch it and people will support it. So yeah, that's what I think about it anyway, guys. Pointing to the most recent, the Flash film, Dixon said, and they damned themselves with the latest Flash flick by leaning into it all multiverse nonsense in order to cram in as many cameos into the failed project as possible. Yeah, that's the thing, guys. If you have a movie and you have cameos, yeah, that's great. And it can make the film really, really cool if you have cameos from different eras of different actors. But if they're just there for no reason, just to say, oh, look at this person or look at this person, it just becomes on-screen visual noise. And it doesn't make any sense. Why are they there? It has no relevance to what you're seeing on screen. And it can just be a distraction rather than adding to the movie. But it all depends on which way you use the cameo tool, you know. So, DC Studios CEO James Gunn also appeared to share some of Miller's opinions about the superhero movies. Speaking with former Lex Luthor actor Michael Rosenbaum, Gunn was asked, quote, "Do you think that there are too many superhero shows and movies? Because I remember when I did Smallville, there was none." Gunn goes on to answer, yeah, I think there's too many. When asked what he should do about that, Gunn responded, "But I don't think it's not. It's much less a problem of too many. And yes, we are not going to overextend ourselves at DC. We're going to be very careful with the product that we are putting out and make sure everything is good as it possibly can be." Yeah, and that's exactly the sentiment you need. Instead of just spamming hundreds and hundreds of projects out like Marvel's been doing over recent years, putting out like so many different projects and, not keeping the quality as to where it should be. Put out less projects, but keep the quality higher, and then more people will support it. That's the way I think anyway. So, he then noted that the creatives behind the film have been subpar, quote, "I think that what's happened is that people have gotten really lazy with their superhero stories, and they have gotten to the place where, oh, it's a superhero movie, let's make a movie about it. And they make, oh, let's make a sequel because the first one did pretty well, and they aren't thinking about why this story is special. What makes this story stand apart from other stories? What is the story at the heart of it all? Why is this character important? What makes this story different? That it feels a need for people in theaters to go see it, or on television." Yeah, that's exactly the thing, isn't it? I understand that Hollywood's a business, and if your first movie does well, you're going to put out a sequel because you're going to try and bank on the IP, make even more money. But it's kind of like, instead of overextending the character and kind of drilling the character into the ground and potentially destroying that character or that part of the franchise, think of the reason as to why the next movie exists. Like, is there a purpose to having the sequel, not just to make money, but to carry the audience over into another story to get them to support it? So yeah, and I think that people have gotten a little lazy, he reiterated, and there's a lot of biff, bow, pam stuff happening in movies. Like, I'm watching third acts of superhero films where I really don't feel like there's rhyme or reason to what's happening. I don't care about the characters. Yeah, I would say that that's reminiscent of like the latest Blue Beetle movie. It's kind of like, if Blue Beetle would come out in the year 2000, yeah, it would probably be awesome and it would probably be getting good reviews. But the fact that it's kind of just this generic superhero movie that we've now seen, several hundred times over, it's not a bad movie, but it's just the fact that we've seen it over and over and over and play out, and all of the kind of acts, act 1, 2, and 3, and we've kind of seen it and it's been there and done it, and it's just a testament to people kind of, we want to see something different, something new. We want to see something a bit more nuanced rather than just a kind of generic superhero genre movie, I guess. So he continued, and they've gotten too generic, exactly what I was just saying. There's this sort of middle of the road type of genre tone that so many superheroes, as opposed to having very different genres. Yeah, I remember in the early days of like Marvel, when you had like the Winter Soldier, it was like a spy thriller, and then you had like Iron Man, which was kind of like a war intrigue thriller kind of movie, and Captain America went back to World War II, and there was all this different shifts in tones of all these different movies, and it kept everything fresh and everything was different. But then Marvel just became, over time, more of the cookie cutter approach, where all of their movies just kind of felt the same, and we were kind of just going through the motions with it a bit. So, Gunn added, "I like to see different types of stories as opposed to seeing the same story told over and over again. I don't know how many times okay, it just ends I." After Rosenbaum shared his thoughts and noted that the stories need to be more compelling, Gunn offered more of his own thoughts. Quote, "I think that also that people say superhero fatigue." Let me say that again. "I think that also, and then people say superhero fatigue. I think that you see now that it's not a real thing. People are fatigued with repetition of the same thing, exactly. And I don't think that there's really just superhero movies. I think you're seeing it now. It's spectacle films in general." He went on, "But there's a lot of spectacle films made, and they've just gotten really generic, and they've gotten boring, and they aren't about characters, and there's no emotion to them. And there should be emotion in things, and no matter. There should be emotion in things that matter. That should always..." I can't... I forgot to read now, guys. "That should always be there. Some type of emotion. I'm not saying that it can't be really light. I'm not saying that it can't be really heavy. But I'm saying there should be some sort of emotion." Yeah, sometimes when you go and watch a movie, you feel like it's just junk for the mind. You feel like there's nothing deeper than the surface. You're kind of just, like he says, there's CGI superheroes on screen fighting each other, and that's kind of as deep as it goes sometimes. And you're thinking, I want a bit more under the surface, a bit more complexity to what I'm watching. But it's good that he's saying this, because he's obviously taken these points on board when he's written Superman Legacy, that's going to be coming out in a couple of years. And I really can't wait to see what he's going to do to implement this stuff into Superman Legacy. The sense of emotion, not making it generic, all this kind of stuff. So, Gunn would then reference the horror genre. "In a horror movie, if you like the main character, then you are much more scared than you're about to get killed. You're much more scared that they're about to get killed, the stakes matter." Yeah, exactly. If you're watching a horror film and the main character, you don't care, or they're a dick and you don't like them, then you don't care if they get killed, and you have no investment in the movie. So, whether or not Marvel or DC course corrects is yet to be seen. The true test for DC will be likely that DC use first two movies in James Gunn's Superman Legacy and The Authority. If Marvel changes, it probably won't be until they introduce the Fantastic Four or the X-Men, and that's a big if. But by then, they might not even have a significant audience even interested in checking those films out, if the company quickly garnering a reputation for pushing out highly tainted films and TV shows that focus on pushing degenerative messaging. That's a strong word, degenerative. I'm not going to get into that, guys, because that goes down a whole sort of political rabbit hole, and I don't really want to get into that too much in this video. And when they marginally stay away from that messaging, the movies and television shows just plain suck. What do you make of Mark Millar's comments? So yeah, guys, like it was saying, obviously superhero genre is a bit in decline at the moment. Is that due to superhero fatigue, do you think? Or do you think that people are still interested in superheroes, but they're just bored with the generic kind of cookie cutter movie now? I'd love to know what you guys think about this. It's very, very interesting. Are you still interested in watching superhero movies at the theatre? I definitely am. It's just that I want a bit more complexity and a bit more emotion and a bit more kind of stakes with my superhero movie. You know, if there's no stakes or emotion or feeling behind the movie, it's kind of just a visual noise, and it's a CGI battle is cool. I think it's as cool as the next person, but you get to a point where you've seen it so many times. I want something a bit more complex. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the whole thing, guys. You jump into the comment sections, let me know what you think about this. I'll be very, very interested to hear what you guys have to say. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon.